Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k, Rogue Trader. As today we wait for the perfect moment to strike. Though it would seem that some folks may have actually beaten us to it. So, let us investigate. Are things truly as revolting as Vent implied? Hey, it's Resurian! Take that, scum! Look who it is! This is all his fault. All of it! Abelard reflexively wipes the sweat from his brow in a startlingly human gesture. And a telling one at that. A rare moment where he allows his age and weariness to show through his armor-like veneer of self-assurance. The lower decks are a source of endless problems. Sometimes I dearly regret that we cannot replace all the locals with servitors. Did you hear that? They were shouting your name. Of course they were. The organization of the daily routine life of the ship rests upon my shoulders. The mountain of challenges and problems from which I endeavor to insulate you, Lord Captain. The situation on the lower decks has been a cause for concern, and I have intervened personally on more than one occasion. That must be why they remember me. They do not know your face. To them, you are akin to a creature of legend, one who has stood on the steps of the Golden Throne, no less. Whereas I am the man whose name is attached to every order, docking rations or lowering a bay's heating. So things down here really have gotten bad. They're openly disrespecting senior officers. They would not have had a chance to express such disrespect if we were not here, and if the situation had been dealt with by the relevant officers. Abelard grimaces. It is a junior officer's worst failing, to pass problems up the chain of command. I have never been able to abide it. I shall say it again. It was a mistake to come here on Lieutenant Vent's whim, Lord Captain. I must admit that the lieutenant is by no means the worst material for an officer, Abelard adds peevishly. But in the name of Terra, the girl is the same age as my eldest great-granddaughter. And she has the gall to tell me how to manage the lower decks and hunt down cultists. It will be another 20 years at least before she can be trusted to act without oversight. Yeah, maybe so. Either way, we're here. Let's keep moving. Greetings, your graces. Something resembling a nest made out of thermal insulation material. This must be where the workers sleep between shifts.
Is there money to be made?
Huge pipes, the arteries of the ship, run through many bays, delivering air, water, heat, and the propulsive force of steam. I still do not see our purpose in coming here. Relax, old man. Going for a stroll on the lower decks every once in a while is good for you. Lets you see how the simple folk live. Yeah, see? Adira gets it.
I always have a backup plan.
The sounds of a heated discussion reverberate through the ship's bays. Lieutenant Avril Vent of the ship's enforcers is barring the path of a heavily built assault unit officer, and judging by their expressions and tone, the standoff has dragged on for some time already, and has now reached boiling point. I have my orders, to put an end to the unrest and purge this sector. You can take your orders and shove them. This is my deck in my sector. There are only 3 people who can waltz in here without my express permission. The first officer, the rogue trader, and the Emperor himself. So, not all my lessons fall on deaf ears, Abelard mutters in crabby approval. He does not clarify whether he means Lieutenant Vent, the officer looming over her, or both. Your Lordship. Noticing you, the two junior officers snap to attention and salute, their subordinates following suit a moment later. What's going on here? Bring me up to speed. Your Lordship, my people have locked down the bay where the strikers are, including their leaders. We have the situation under control as far as resources allow. That's so. Then how do you explain the guys who attacked us on the way here? Granted, they were only throwing trash at us, but what if they'd had something worse? Vent pales slightly. The people are getting desperate, clearly. They saw the assault unit and they decided they had nothing left to lose. I apologize, Lord Captain. It is outrageous. I'm sure the people simply didn't recognize you. It wouldn't have occurred otherwise. We will deal with them once the current situation is resolved. I told you locals attacked the senior command crew, and that's your response? You sure you're ready for this much responsibility, Lieutenant? Vent pales more, but straightens up and clips out. Forgive me, Lord Captain. I will take steps to ensure such a thing does not happen again. That's more like it. Now let's go meet these strikers of yours. See if we can get a handle on things before they get any worse. Abelard's mouth twists, but he restrains himself and says nothing. Right you are, Lord Captain. Allow me to wish you good luck. Hope gleams in Lieutenant Vent's eyes. For Depot 4! We won't stand for it anymore! Wow, nobles from the upper decks down here to see us! A dozen pairs of eyes stare apprehensively at you. The people before you are typical inhabitants of the lower decks. You take in their simple clothing, crude weapons, and faces that display varying levels of mutation, from the barely discernible to the strange, to the outright grotesque. A whisper passes through the crowd, and you detect a mixture of fear, astonishment, and joy in their reactions. Finally, 3 people break away from the crowd, an elderly woman and 2 men. These must be the leaders. They bow clumsily before you. Lord Captain, you've come down to us. Yeah, I'm here. And I was just attacked by locals. Anyone want to explain that? Here's an explanation for you. The people have been pushed to their limit, and now they're lashing out. As if we don't know why those top deck units are being sent down here. Like that one there that the lieutenant won't let past. Our clans are all inside the bay that's been sealed off. But the lower decks are big. I'm sure there are some people who had just about enough. We're getting it from all sides. The soldiers have encircled the ones who've risen up. A death squad has just arrived. It's no wonder folks are lashing out. Their words seem sincere to you. Their body language and the glances traded between them reveal that the news of the attack has shocked them. Fair enough. Let's just make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, you want to tell me what this strike's all about? Striking? That's news to us, your lordship, says a tall, thin man in worker's garb. All we're doing is asking questions, saying what we think. Shut up, Rivet, snaps the old woman, who turns her hostile dark eyes on you. Here's the deal, your lordship. Your damned enforcers are all over us down here. They say they're looking for cultists. One wrong word and they're reaching for their batons. If they want to punish someone, they turn off the heating to hold bays for a week at a time, so we get sick and freeze. In my clan, 2 little ones died from inflammation of their lungs, all because of those enforcers. The old woman spits on the floor and rubs at the spittle with the toe of her worn-out shoe. Yeah, that's not great. Argenta does not interrupt the workers, but you see the sadness swell in her eyes when the children's deaths are mentioned. She quietly whispers a requiem prayer and makes a sign over herself. It's all true. Vent is the only enforcer officer who stood up for us. It's clear as day who had a mother from the lower decks and who grew up amidships and has no fellow feeling toward us. The grim man with a scarred face throws up his arms. Your lordship, we're no villains here, we're honest workers, your servants. We plotted no disorder, we went on strike openly, and now we've got guns pointed at us. All we're doing is asking to be allowed to work in peace, without being harassed. Look, I hear you, but... What about this cultist amulet the enforcers found? Are we supposed to just ignore that kind of thing? A cultist amulet? What's that? The gewgaw they found on the dead drunkard? If it was something evil or forbidden, we sure didn't know. The enforcers just said they were looking for heretics among us, and anyone obstructing their investigation would be punished. But how could there be heretics here? We know our own people. There have been no new faces around. Definitely not. And if there were, we'd be the first to report them. And as for this amulet, or whatever it is, they took it off a dead body. There are no cultists still breathing in our sector, that's for sure. But when that fight broke out, some enterprising folks looted the bodies. The boots they came back with. Nobody's ever tread these decks in boots so fine, I can tell you that. Seems to me these cultists have better commanders than us. Trust me, you don't want chaos boots. They come with corrupted souls. Oh yeah, those boots were really fine. And there was no harm in taking them, right? As for the amulet, it must have been pocketed by someone who didn't know any better. We don't need any amulets around here. We all worship the Emperor. And when we're working, we bow down before the machine spirits of the large and small transformers and the servo motor. The same way my grandfather was taught 100 years ago by a tech priest who came calling. Believe us, your lordship. We are people of faith. Naive children. Weren't you taught from an early age about the dangers of the archenemy's creations? Weren't you warned that any unfamiliar object could be one of them? We were told, Holy Sister, but it was long ago. The last time we saw a confessor in our sector, it was just after I'd had my third little one. That is regrettable. But you cannot lay the burden of leading a righteous life on the shoulders of the Holy Fathers. Who will you blame when beasts crawl out of those amulets you stole from the heretics? The Holy Father who is not here? Or the scavenger who brought evil down on himself and his neighbors? Abby, you're being awfully quiet over there. Anything you'd like to add? I authorize the use of all necessary measures to locate Chaos worshippers hiding in this sector. The specific steps taken by the officers were not reported to me. Abelard frowns, clearly disgruntled at having to explain himself in the workers' presence. Nevertheless, I am certain that their actions were justified. Cultists are no drunken stevedores. They are the enemy and a threat to the ship. Neutralizing them demands decisive action. Right, so you told them to get it done, but didn't care how. So, what exactly do you folks want? What are you asking for? Would you look at this? The exalted Lord Captain himself is asking us bilge rats what we want. Well, here's what. We want you to rein in your damned enforcers, to quit turning off the heat, and to stop battering everything that moves. No, that's not it. We want the enforcers gone from here, and we want to be armed. Give us arms and we'll govern ourselves. We'll defend ourselves if these cultists do show their faces. I've been leader of my clan for 20 years now. Getting rid of these club-wielding thugs can only improve things around here. You've gone too far, old man. They'll never let the maggots on the lower decks live without the enforcers breathing down their necks. They probably even insist on enforcers on the upper decks, too. As for weapons, what do we need them for? Before the first day's out, we'll have someone shooting their neighbor out of stupidity or drunkenness. We don't need that. If the enforcers stop hassling us, that'll be enough. In return, we'll find the scavengers who robbed the cultists' bodies, and we'll talk to them, one lower decker to another. If there are any more of these damn amulets about, we'll hand them over to the enforcers ourselves. You speak for yourself and your clan, and I'll speak for me and mine. I don't want empty gestures. I want real change. They'll promise us the world now, but as soon as the Anointed One turns his back, these brutes will be on us even harder than before. All because we dared to speak out. The tall worker's eyes dart between the two arguing leaders. Every few seconds he opens his mouth as if planning to agree, but each time he falls silent, simply making a few vague noises of approval. Abby, thoughts? The story about going scavenging for boots and accidentally picking up a heretical amulet doesn't convince me. These people were moments away from rebelling, and possibly becoming minions of the archenemy. We must not give them what they want. Even if they did acquire something innocently, purely out of their own stupidity, that does not mean they are not tainted with corruption. What begins as petty thievery can turn into a far graver problem. I have seen it before. Abelard's face darkens momentarily. In my second war, there was a sergeant in the Imperial Guard regiment that was stationed nearby. The sergeant took an ordinary pocket knife from the body of a heretic, and his whole unit lost their lives for it. When they finally managed to break into the barracks, they found not a single survivor, only the pocket knife, which had grown through all the rows of beds like a metal choking vine. So when it comes to scavengers, malcontents, strikers, or whatever they'll turn into next, my verdict is simple. Give them no quarter. Yeah, I'll certainly take that under consideration. Alright, people. I'll tell you what. I'm not giving you weapons. That's a non-starter. Having an independent nation in the middle of my ship is ridiculous. But I do agree the enforcers have been too heavy-handed. If you're willing to work with me, then I'll see to it that they treat you more reasonably in the future. They're supposed to be here for your safety just as much as they are for mine. I'll make sure they act like it. Or you can reject my offer, go ahead with your rebellion, and I'll have to let the assault crews do what they do, for the safety of the ship and everyone else on it. The tall worker they call Rivet shrugs and casts a sidelong look at the old woman. Old Nan, listen, listen. The Lord Captain himself has come down to us and is offering concessions. And I don't know a single person in the whole of Depot 4 who's ever stood next to the rogue trader, let alone talked to them. Back down. Now's not the time for you to be a stubborn old crone. Listen to us, old Nan. The 3 clans of Depot 4 ought to act as one. We've made our minds up. It's your turn to decide. Don't ask them to disband the enforcers or give us weapons. We don't need any of that. The old woman hisses in dissatisfaction. You two are ganging up on me, is that it? So brave you are against an old woman. But I'll shut up. I will, indeed. I won't go against 2 clan leaders on my own. If you want to make peace with the enforcers, make your peace. That's great. Just fantastic. Lord Captain, we're all agreed. Okay, glad we got this settled. I'll have a word with the enforcers, and in return, you'll help police your own. Keep an eye out for those chaos artifacts or any other strangers in your midst. Your lordship, thank you. You have not abandoned us lower deckers. You came yourself and settled everything. I'll tell my grandchildren about this. Of course, your lordship. We'll root out any nasty business faster than the enforcers, and we'll leave no stone unturned. It's not clear if anything will change for us, but at least we've been shown mercy. Hail the Lord Captain! They showed mercy on us, I can't believe it. And all's well that ends well, at least. As well as can be expected on a dystopian ship like this, but...
told me a secret.
Manometer. The gauge shows that the steam pressure in this pipe is close to maximum. However, it does not reach the bars at the other end. Okay, you want to be more specific, perhaps?
My options open.
I see multiple pipes with bars at the end. This page is where the start of each shift is marked. The last mark is missing. The workers went on strike. The heatsink warms the air around it to a scorching temperature. This is the warmest part of the bay. The workers have even dragged deck chairs here. Nothing is happening. Perhaps turning a different valve will work. Right, yes, okay. I remember this. It's a very basic puzzle. We have to go around and turn all the valves in the right order. Let's give it a quick gander. We can spare a minute or two.
Rise to the top, or get left in the dust.
Wow, nobles from the upper decks down here to see us. Here we go. A container can be seen beyond the massive bars. Perhaps examining the pipe will allow you to reach it. Helpful, thanks. Not like there's more than one pipe around here or anything. Inside the box, a string of scratched letters runs along the edge. Different first names, but the same surname. It looks like this box has been passed down in the family from generation to generation.
Let us not dawdle.
That is both inspiring and very sad. Families living for multiple generations just toiling away in the lower decks is pretty depressing, but also just an innate part of the setting, I suppose. Much like how every time we warp travel it requires literal payment in blood. This is just a bleak setting in general. You know, it's interesting to visit and explore, but it is definitely not a place I think I would ever want to actually live, even as one of the privileged elite. So did that do it? Are we good? We are not. Alright, well, let's do another pass, I guess. Stopping unexpectedly, Abelard imperiously dismisses the unit to stand at a distance, and addresses your other companion, saying, "I have an urgent matter to discuss with the Lord Captain. Please, Give us a moment. Abelard looks at you, and his last vestiges of restraint vanish. Well, are you pleased with your investigation, Lord Captain? You kowtowed to the disloyal rabble. You believed their lies and showed them leniency. Next time the ship is attacked by cultists, that rabble will welcome them in with open arms and allow them to wreak whatever havoc they like, because they see you as a weak leader. Is that how you see your future at the helm of the Von Valancius Protectorate? Yeah, I came down here and I cut a deal. It's what I do. I think the more important takeaway here, though, is your role in this whole mess. I only had to come down here and do this because your actions basically guaranteed it would only get worse. Abby, you said it yourself. This situation started over 30 years ago. You never solved it. You just delayed the inevitable. Instead of fixing the problem, you basically just made sure it would never go away. I would have handled the situation myself had you not decided to intervene, Abelard says irascibly. Remember Lord Captain Theodora? Do you think she ever set one slippered foot on the lower decks? No, she did not. Such matters were left to myself and the junior officers, while she dedicated herself to her grand designs for the Protectorate, as any true strategist and rogue trader ought. And you don't see the problem with that, Theodora keeping herself ignorant of the problems on her own ship. Abby, I'd be more than happy to let you handle these problems, if you could actually handle them. This situation was brewing for decades. Are you seriously going to tell me that that was adequately handled? Abelard's face relaxes slightly. You're right. At least as concerns junior officers making complaints directly to you. That is not the takeaway we were going for, but one step at a time, I guess. And Abelard stands straight at attention. I lost my temper, Lord Captain, and I believe I ought to explain myself. Abelard speaks slowly, the words not coming easily to him. The prosperity of the Von Valancius Protectorate is not just an empty phrase to me. I left the Imperial Navy for the chance to see it flourish. It was the most momentous decision of my life, and I did it because I saw in Lord Captain Theodora's deeds the sign of true greatness. Rogue traders do not simply forge new routes and capture worlds. They create order out of anarchy. That creative impulse was entirely lacking during my time in the military. So I left behind everything I had known, everything my family had known. I come from a long line of officers, and I embarked upon this incredibly reckless venture. Lord Captain Theodora entrusted me with all the concerns she had no time for. She would go off on her flagship for long periods, to distant frontiers on scouting voyages, and the advancement of the entire Protectorate rested on my shoulders. And then, suddenly, everything that had been built over years and years began to quake, rattling like a flimsy hanger on a seismically active world. One of the senior officers betrayed us all. The rogue trader was killed, and who knows what is happening on the planets. I tell you this honestly, without fear of appearing weak. All this has come as a grievous blow to me. I am not panicking or grieving because I cannot allow myself to panic or grieve. I am duty-bound to aid the new rogue trader, to aid you, to find your footing as quickly as possible. And to do that, I must insulate you from problems that in the past have been dealt with by tried and tested procedures set out in the ship's regulations. Procedures that were established long ago and have functioned smoothly for decades cannot suddenly be deemed excess to requirements. Abby, I get it. A lot has changed in a really short period of time for you and me both. and we're still surrounded by unknowns. The best way to deal with it is to adapt. Change begets change. And one of the biggest changes you have to get used to is that Theodora is gone. I'm the new Lord Captain, and I have a different way of doing things. If you want to keep serving as my seneschal, if you want me to trust you with more responsibilities, then that's just something you'll have to accept. Otherwise, we're just going to keep butting heads, and I don't see that working out for either of us. Abelard solemnly inclines his head. Yes, Lord Captain. After a moment's silence, he adds, looking at you with interest. Your resolve is admirable and demonstrates strong leadership. I shall remember this moment, should my old habits ever begin to creep back in. And now, please, let us leave the lower decks. If the rogue trader desires to stretch his legs, there are far more suitable places. Oh, and immediate level up. You know what? That right there makes this whole thing worth our time. Because I believe our next level up is actually the one where we get to pick a new ability, which is a huge power jump. So that'll be particularly useful before we go into an active battle zone. Which, at this point, we might not actually have enough time for today. We're already past the half-hour mark. But let's, let me get this resolved real quick, and then we'll at least knock out that Void Chip event. One sec whilst I let off some steam. Hey, there we go. Okay. Now let's work our way back to the cache. Let's see what we got.
I always get the job done.
Ooh. Well, they have changed up the cache. This is all potentially useful stuff. It's funny, back in the early access builds, they actually also included a small assortment of heretical trophies in this cache.
Always keep my options open.
Which I commented on back in the early access beta series. Because it immediately raised the question of whether or not we could actually trust the strikers we had just brokered a truce with. I guess the developers were paying attention because those have been removed. Oh, we've got this level up too. One sec. Yes, that's our ability level. Alright, let's hold off on that for a second. I'd like to consider my options. I mean, I've got it all noted down here, but just have to double check for changes. The box crackles to life, and Master Helmsman Ravor addresses you. What we have here, Lord Captain, it's not very noticeable, but there's a void ship sitting in the local asteroid field. It sure is quiet, like it's huddled up in there on purpose. It's not like I'm surprised. The thing is more scrap heap than ship at this point. Somebody sure went to town on it. We're registering critical damage to the hull and depressurization of several compartments. Oh, there's an incoming transmission now, too. Hear us? The box transmission hisses and abruptly cuts to static. Do not require assistance. Do not require assistance. Copy. The box relays a different voice. Keep following. They'll pass us by, won't they? Or protect. Lord Captain, I'm told our augurs cannot determine the allegiance of the vessel. To be brief, there is an unidentified and badly damaged vessel within an asteroid field, near the Rycadiphilia colony that is refusing help, which, not to put too fine a point on it, has not yet been offered to them. Ravor, hail the ship. Find out who they are. Yes, Lord Captain. The connection is established. Unknown vessel, we are receiving you. Identify yourselves. I repeat, identify yourselves. For a brief moment, the Vox only hisses and snaps, and then several voices at once start shouting over one another. Do not tell him! We're done for! This is Thunderfang. We are... One of the voices falters uncertainly and is replaced by another. A merchant vessel. Do you copy? We're a private vessel. A merchant vessel. Of course they are. Damn, my stupid head. Where did I hear this name before? Thunderfang. Ravor, what are the augurs telling us? Is that thing even flight-worthy? Telemetry shows multiple hull breaches, most likely caused by the guns of a combat ship. Several compartments are leaking air. The bridge has been almost completely obliterated. 2 of the engines are critically damaged. Somebody gave them a thrashing so solid they barely managed to limp away. Thunderfang, your ship is about to fall apart. What happened to you? The box responds by bursting into a cacophony of sounds, words, and emotions. Someone chuckles bitterly, another swears with some foul expletives, and yet another hisses, furiously demanding that the others shut up. You manage to make out little from all the noise. We were just flying, minding our own business. Straight out of the blue and opened fire. A miracle we could get away. Emperor protected, and then more fire. Who? Void only knows. Roasted our tail, bombed everything. The folks, our folks, are left without our help. We never got to them. And why can't we get a positive ID on your ship? You can make out hoarse and furious whispering, even over the crackling of the static. Why? I don't know. What if... Certainly not. The whispering dies, and a clear, youthful voice cuts through the static. Our vessel is badly damaged. Damage is preventing the correct identification. We assure you, merchant vessel. Thunderfang does not require aid. Alright, Thunderfang, I think I've been patient enough. I've got torpedoes locked. You want to try running that by me again? Happy now? What have you done, idiot? It's too late now. The Vox channel is again filled with angry whispering of several voices. The whispers and static are drowned out by a clear and slightly frightened voice. Do you copy? We are from the Void. We did not come here to loot. On a different business. To help our own of jail. Do not hurt Lees. We already had our chronos cleaned. How about striking a deal? Our hold is full of... I mean goods. In case you're unaware, Lord Captain, the Fellowship of the Void is a disorderly assembly of several dozen pirate factions in the Coronis Expanse. They consider themselves above regular heretics solely because they sometimes have Vox conversations with those whom they are about to board. Were it up to me, I would make them eat a salvo from the macro cannons to shake the scum loose from the decks. They certainly deserve it. The honeyed voice of the high factotum interrupts the translation with a polite cough. I would wait on destroying the vessel if I were you. Although the moral aspects of their livelihoods do cause some awkward questions, the Fellowship of the Void remains a major supplier of goods to the local market. Perhaps you will find dealing with them acceptable, especially in a situation where performing a warp jump is impossible. Yeah, you make a good point, Danrock. Thunderfang, if you're in need of supplies, I'm willing to trade. All right, our very first vendor. Let's see what we got. Flamethrower, right off the bat. Very useful. And we will take it, because, unlike back in the alpha, we do not actually spend profit factor when purchasing items. As seen in the beta, all we need is to actually equal or exceed the cost of an item with our profit factor to automatically acquire it. I guess the assumption being that our fortune is essentially self-perpetuating, and that by simple virtue of meeting the requirement, we have sufficient resources or appropriate goods to trade for that particular item, but without, of course, making a significant impact on the overall value of our total holdings. One sec, just trying to bump us up to tier 1 real quick so we can grab some more goods. Oh, wow. Look at that. We had exactly the right amount of trade goods to get us up to tier 1. Oh, yeah. There is some extremely useful stuff here. Oh, Power Maul. Not a weapon I classically use, but I am on a bit of a knockback kick right now. I mean, we're going to take it either way, so let's go ahead and grab that and get a gander at our loadouts real quick. We're currently double chain sorting. This thing has a decent area attack. Yeah, I think that works. The Wrath of St. Drusus for charging, and then the Power Maul for sweep attacks or knockback. Then we'll also swap in the Camouflage Robe, just to make our attacks ever so slightly more accurate. And, yeah, I guess we'll drop the Shoddy. Oh, man. Shotties are fun, though. It's not like the Bolter's been super reliable thus far. But no, Flamer's just more practical. For now. And, yeah, we are at time, so obviously we're not hitting Reichhead Minoris today. But I'll tell you what. I think our level ups are pretty straightforward. I just have to double check everything real quick off screen. But give me 1 sec and then we'll run through it. Get our guys all powered up before we hit the ground running next time. 1 sec. And we're back. Okay, yeah, it turns out it's pretty straightforward. If there were any really notable changes between sessions, I didn't catch them, so we'll just go with what I originally had planned. First up, Valen, who starts with an ability. And we are going right for Precise Attack. That'll help offset our biggest weakness right now, which is enemies who have already entrenched themselves. Plus, there's also a really great talent that pairs with it, so we'll definitely be picking that up. And then next time we get an ability slot, we'll grab Perfect Spot. As for skills, no real question here. We'll max out Logic. Like to Medicate for our secondary. Still weighing my options there. For Adira, normally I would have her immediately invest in some decent buffs. But given that we are not going to be grabbing a healing skill with Cassia, I feel compelled to instead immediately invest in Biomancy. That'll give us access to an immediate buff as well as an assortment of useful talents. But more notably, at her next ability, she'll then be able to pick up Invigorate. That's a halfway decent range heal, and also acts as a stepping stone to Warp Speed, I believe. For skill, no real question here. Her focuses are Awareness and Warp Lore. Then we've got Abelard, who actually gets a characteristic advance. And while we will max out his toughness gains a little later down the line, I think right now we need to start shoring up his weapon skill. That is starting to lag. And then for his talent, we're right back on defense with Combat Master, which is pretty much a must-have for a frontline tank. That will remove the opponent's gang-up bonus when he's facing multiple foes. Bouncing over to Argenta. She also gets a characteristic, and we've already maxed out her ballistic skill. Agility's in a good place, so I think we'll go ahead and round out her willpower. That'll immediately boost that special faith-based ability she has, as well as round up any other faith-based talents that we might give her. Speaking of which, jumping over to her talents, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. And while long-term, I think we will pick up at least a couple of these. We're starting with Flensing Faith. That way we can immediately get a big boost on that flamer we just picked up. That's a pretty sizable bump versus Demons, Psychers, and Xenos, all of which we'll be facing on a fairly regular basis. And Cassia, who, as previously implied, will be completely ignoring her officer abilities. Which is a bit of a shame. Get back in the fight is great for saving medkits. But instead, we are going to focus her on crowd control. And while long-term I would like to invest in the whole Held and Immolate tree, I think this early we need to really focus on repositioning. Pulling people out of cover, dragging them in and out of melee, as well as damaging them once we pick up Perilous Ways, but we are not getting that one just yet. So I think ultimately our first two picks are going to be Notch of Purpose and Point of Curiosity, though I am also curious about Touch of Anger, but I don't really want to get that one until we get Waking Nightmare. Regardless though, starting with Notch of Purpose. And then for her talent, there's actually several here we need, but ultimately, we'll go ahead and continue building our foundation. We'll grab Unnatural Allure. That's an immediate +5 bump to her fellowship, as well as an additional stacking +1 additional fellowship for every navigator talent or ability she takes. Though the next talent we give her will definitely be Strange Vitality. That one practically makes her functionally immortal. And that's it. Level up complete. And with that, we are officially past time. We'll hit the pause button for now, poised as we are above the atmosphere of Rykad Minoris. I'll take care of the usual bookkeeping off screen. Make sure we're ready to be dropped into an active combat zone, and we will pick up here next time, as we put the war back in Warhammer. Worry not. Plenty of senseless carnage coming our way. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Revenant, Alois, Blindiron, CrowkingLoR, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, Theory V23, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.